I had a random thought today, and that thought to me was like, how much bad people are some of the greatest lessons or some of the best teachers of what you need to do? And what I mean by that is oftentimes we learn to be better people by learning what not to do. And I kind of look at that with my father, whereas I love my father, I really do. But he is kind of like what I consider a newspaper dad, where when he was still with my stepmom, he would just have her do all kinds of stuff, like do all his taxes, clean around the house, do all this work that he should have been helping along with. Mind you, she would work like 12-hour nursing shifts and then he still expect her to act like a traditional wife instead of just help her around. And I looked at my father and I often thought to myself, wow, I don't want to do that. That's something I actually want to be more considerate. And by looking at my father, I started being more considerate of my mom because I don't live in the same house or I didn't live in the same house with my father and my stepmom. But whenever I go back to my mom's house, I started being more considerate of trying to clean the dishes or doing other kinds of cleaning things and being more considerate because I saw how badly it was to be a man who just didn't care. And I want to be a person who does care. And I look at other situations, right? Where I'll want to talk to people and I'll see like I'll try to interject in a conversation and just feel so ignored and just constantly just looked over and no one cares what I had to say. And that deeply hurt me off. That deeply hurted me a lot of times because I thought to myself, man, I just want to be heard. And now when I look at other people going through that situation, because I feel bad and I remember how I felt, I often look to try to be better. Like whenever someone kind of hurts me, again, I always try to clarify in my videos. I'm not trying to say I'm like the bastion of morality, but whenever someone hurts me, I like to think to myself, okay, how can I try not to be this? Like, how can I actually make sure that people don't feel the way I do? Because I overthink and I internalize a lot of things because I don't, for example, with the mention of wanting to be heard, I don't want people to ever feel like they're unheard around me because I know what it's like to be left out. And I think a lot of times bad people or just people that mistreat you can teach you so much of how you want to be in terms of living your life or even like bad relationships, like looking at some of your friends' toxic relationships. I hate to be like, oh, my life's just, use them as an example, but I'll look at one of my friends where she's with like a guy who's just a complete dirtbag who mistreats her, constantly holds her to her mistakes, even though she's apologized. And I look at that and it's a reminder of how I don't want to be. Because I think oftentimes we're not motivated always out of the most purest intentions. A lot of times we're motivated out of spite. I remember one time there was this one guy where I was showing off like a random comic I drew on paper. And this guy in my class is like, dude, you always make a comic, but you never actually finish or make any new comics. You just start a new story and you never commit. Like you're always showing us, but you're not actually ever finishing the stories. You just always come up with just a random new idea. And I remember looking at that, it sort of hurt my feelings, but it taught me something about it made me passionate, it made me spiteful because now I've been working on my comic for almost 10 years because of that one simple comment of him saying, you never finish your stories. I tell you, I'm going to finish my current comic. If you want to check out my comics, it's about Merlin the Wizard. It's linked in my bio, by the way. But I will finish that comic just out of spite. Even if I don't do as many plans as I plan to, I'm gonna finish that story just to prove him wrong. Wrong. And I think oftentimes we can act to be actively good by looking at bad people and thinking to ourselves, dang, I don't want to be that. I know I keep on reiterating, but still, I think bad people are often the best teachers. I remember one time this girl cussed me out. Like she cussed me out badly. It was like some toxic, Latina girl, like hot Cheeto girl on the bus, and she cursed me out. But she actually gave me some advice. Well, she didn't mean advice. She meant it as a roast. But it's like you're always interjecting people's conversations. Like no one cares about what you say. Like you never even ask. Like you just be so nosy. Blah blah blah. She gave me the business, right? And instead of looking at that and being angry, because I'm gonna be honest, I just didn't respect her. So what she said didn't really bother me. But She did teach me that I need to be more mindful about asking to be in the conversation because it was true. I would butt in a lot of conversations. And sometimes it's important to be able to take criticism, even when it's not always constructive. Do I prefer constructive criticism? Yeah, of course. But just because it's brought to you in a bad way doesn't mean there's nothing you can take away from it. Sometimes the most hurtful things can be one of your best teachers. So I encourage you to look around and if someone mistreats you, think to yourself, how can I do better to make sure someone doesn't get mistreated in this way? Because oftentimes, like I'm not trying to be religious or preach you, but the verse that says, love your neighbor as yourself. One thing we forget, I remember someone pointed this out, I was watching a video, is the part of it that says, as you love yourself. Some of the best ways that we learn to love people is by looking at ourselves and looking, hey, how do I want to be treated? It's the golden rule, but it's a simple rule. So I hope you guys have a great day.